Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Step-by-Step Maps with the LilDM. Maybe that's what I'm calling this series. It's what I'm going with for now. We could change it later if we have to, but step-by-step sounds about right. So, let's go ahead and get into it. We will be doing, of course, the fantasy battle map. And we're gonna go 25 by 25. I know it's controversial, but it's what works for me. It's easy, drag and drop into roll 20, set to 25, boom, the whole map is done right then and there. Bigger maps and bigger dungeons we'll do a little later, maybe. Usually I connect to 25 by 25 maps, or maybe 4 and make a 50 by 50 map by doing 4 25 by 25 maps. But anyway, we're gonna go ahead and get the fence going here. I believe we went with a simple fence. I wanted to do the stone one, but I ended up doing this like really nice fancy like gray metal fence that goes around. I also notably I also did not make this symmetrical, and that was on purpose. So I have if you know me, and if you want to know a little fun fact about me, my birthday is Halloween. Yes, October 31st. It's a super fun day every day on my birthday. Trust me, for the first 7 years, I thought everyone dressed up for me. But anyway, my birthday is Halloween, so I frequented a lot of graveyards in my life. And I gotta tell you, they're not symmetrical at all. A lot of them are kind of old world meets new world. Old structures meet new structures. And they try their best not to disturb, obviously, the graves, and to do so, they have to ignore or improve certain aspects about the graveyard. So I went with an uneven graveyard, and I also wanted to do a little different. I went to Salem a year ago, and then before that, I want to say 3 years ago. But that was a super fun time. We went to the graveyard there where a lot of like the historical people were buried. And they had different right now I'm doing the tomb here. Sorry, I know it's a step-by-step guide, but I'm just telling you my thought process here. And they had tombstones situated different directions. So that's kind of what I went with this here. I went with a single direction, and usually they do start with a single direction, but as people buy plots, basically they choose the orientation of how their casket is laid in the ground, and most of the time they either point it towards someone they loved in the past, or they point it towards like a family grave, or sometimes towards a flag, or towards a tomb, or towards a monument in general. Or they just buy the plots and then just go a separate direction because they want to be different. So different families also marked their graveyards with retaining walls. So you have these large retaining walls situated in a like 6 plot graveyard. So that's kind of what I did here. I also put those big like headstone family markers essentially, and then we went ahead and kind of rotated these around. We kind of dotted them around too. You also want to keep in mind that a body, when laid across, is more than just 5 feet, unless they are 5 feet tall, which most races, if you know, are not 5 feet tall. So you want to give at least a 10-foot room between each gravestone, and that's kind of what we went with. We kind of just put things here, put things there. Now I believe we're trying to find a specific item. We went with let's see. It is hard to find certain things. Like, that is the biggest crux of Inkarnate, and they do their best. Like I said, the search bar is very, very necessary sometimes, and you can see I almost went for it for a quick second, but I wanted to find the runes that we used in a previous map. These runes are pretty good. Like I said, I'm going to use these runes to build the retaining wall, because again, in my experience, these retaining walls represented different family plots of a graveyard, and I thought that was pretty cool. So I'm gonna go ahead and use that information here. And these retaining walls also were essentially part of the grave themselves. So again, we didn't want to modernize it by getting rid of these retaining walls, but we also wanted that old world essentially not process, but old world tradition to keep a retaining wall. So they essentially, what they do is they let them rot, and it gives them this atmosphere of being older than time, because these rocks have just multitude of wear and tear over the years of rain. And I also noticed that there's different types of rocks. So here you can see I'm doing sandy stone for one plot of land specifically, because the richer you were back then, the bigger the plot you can get, and also the better materials you can have for that plot. So what I did is I used that sandstone to build a retaining wall. And back then they only really cared what was essentially trendy, and trends kind of kept up, which is why there's more stone, and then the new trend was sandstone. But of course, I made it the biggest plot of the graveyard. Here I'm dotting some graves that were just recently dug, if you will, and then covered up with more dirt. And I wanted to do an open grave. So you kind of just dot them around, but I wanted to do an open grave, and I was thinking of concepts of how to do that. So we kind of moved this little family tombstone marker, essentially. And you can see I'm looking for something specific. It's a hole in the ground. It's from their trap collection. If you see here, there's a decent hole that looks pretty realistic, but it has those spikes in it. So I'm like, I can't use spikes. So I look up ground and nothing comes up, and I'm like, all right, well, I'll just do it myself. So what I did is I subtracted the dirt, or the land, and that makes it water, essentially. So then I enabled mask, and we turned off the ripple effect, which makes it not water anymore. We turned the stroke down to like a brown color, and then we changed the outlines and the shadows to black. And then what we did was we changed the stroke just a little bit thinner, and then we went ahead and put the dirt in there. And I was like, nah, that doesn't really look right. So we took the black marks essentially, and we outlined it almost like it was it has like shadows in the back. So then we changed the occupancy. So the opacity, sorry, not occupancy, opacity. And then you can go over it, and that looks like a really good open grave. So I went with a couple of these. I don't think I did too many of them. I didn't really feel like there would be a lot of opened graves in this map. you can have open graves indicating a recently dug up grave. And what I should have done, that might be in the finished product, is have a grave with a mound of dirt next to it that is open with a mound of dirt, and these open graves should have mounds of dirt next to them with shovels as well. So I know I'm recording this like after the fact of making the map, but I will go back and change it, and I'll point those out on the finished product. But we went essentially back and did kind of the same thing. We had a little trouble with this corner, but we ended up getting it situated. And we did pretty much the same thing. We kind of just went around and then made it darker, and then kind of just put a squirrel there, or squiggle. And I was like, that doesn't really look right. So I added some more dirt, and then you add more darkness, and it kind of just builds itself. It looks good regardless of how you do it, and it makes it look unique because you did one plot a certain way and you did another plot a different way, which is exactly how it would be in real life, because no person digs the same hole the exact same way. So I thought it was, kind of cool. I kind of wanted to do like a dead grass kind of area, and I realized like it's not gonna work. Maybe if I used a different grass like brush, it would work, but with these cloves / like dead grass area, that's it's already dead grass, so it didn't work. So like I tried a couple things like this autumn. I was like, it looks good, but no. And I just went with, I'm just not gonna do it, essentially. So now we're dotting with some trees. And like I said, in my experience with graveyards, it was always during the fall, so I went with some fall trees. And they actually look very beautiful in contrast to this graveyard. And let me tell you, Sleepy Hollow during the fall, if you've ever been to Sleepy Hollow during the fall, it is something to gawk at. It is very beautiful. We went to the graveyard, and it just go, trust me. But anyway, we went ahead and dotted some. Like I said, it hasn't been a place that hasn't been lived in if there's not stumps around, because again, they either burned their stumps or just kept them and built around them. And that's essentially what this graveyard is kind of about. We're going ahead and putting some benches here. We're going to put them on the layer underneath the runes, so they're kind of part of the retaining wall. And then certain families actually had certain benches. So bench here and a bench there. Basically what happened is if a family member wanted a bench, they built or bought a bench, and that bench sat there until their death, and then sat there until whenever. So we went with that. And now we're going to add some potted plants. I wanted to go with like something simple, so we went with some simple clay pots. And you'll see these pretty much everywhere in graveyards. It's nothing super like serious. It's just a way to kind of make it look nice. We went with a simple little like fern plant, not like flowers or anything, but just something that kind of indicates that there is growth, or there is life where there is death as well. So we went ahead and took these roots and then added them to the trees, because again, if you've ever been in a graveyard, there are plenty of roots that are uprooting a lot of tombstones or trees that have not been pruned correctly, so their roots are on top of the soil. And I thought that was pretty cool. So we went ahead and put some leaves down, of course, fall leaves, and then some sticks and stones. I kind of wasn't sure whether to do sticks and stones, because if this graveyard is a kept graveyard, then there wouldn't be sticks and stones, because someone would come around and make sure the graveyard is nice and proper. But there, ultimately, again, like I said, it depends on the age you want to be in when you run your D&D game. I just went with a couple sticks and stones here and there. You can see we're putting in the essentially the crypts, or the tombs for this rich family that started the graveyard. That's another thing. These tombs, these graveyards, essentially came from a family tomb. Most of the time, people bought a lot, built a family crypt for their family to go into, and most of the time it was rich families, and then they they sold the plots of land to other people, i.e. they earned money and commission off other people dying, and then essentially let them and their families spread out into the graveyard. So it all starts with like usually one crypt, and then it goes from there. But sometimes it's the other way around. But in my experience, that's what I was told anyway. And here we are adding some candelabras, just some things that make it look nice. And I wanted, most crypts have windows in them, so I grabbed a stone kind of looking window, and I kind of resized it. You gotta make sure it's on the right level as well. So we turned it around so that you could see the glass, and then we resized it best we can. And I kind of wanted it to be a bigger window, so we added that. And I'm like, well, windows, they give off light, so let's go get some light. And one of the things you can do with this light is, of course, it's orange now, but what you can do is you could turn the saturation all the way down, and it becomes like regular, like white light, or in this case, if you wanted, moonlight. Very, very nice to do. And most of the time, with the filter, you can put a night filter on it, and then with that night filter, with that light, you can turn that light to the highest filter setting, so it's on top of the filter, which makes it look just much more crisp. But anyway, I think that'll be it for the rest of the map. Like I said, I changed a couple things here and there, added some dirt piles and probably shovels, but this is the finished product. I think it looks great. Like I have nothing else to say about it other than I hope you guys enjoyed, and I thank you very much for watching. I hope you learned at least something regarding graveyards, or just regarding map making. Regardless of the case, I appreciate you coming in. Thank you very much. And like I said in all my videos, these maps are available on my Patreon. They're only $1, and if you keep up with monthly payments of $1, you get every single new map as it comes out. So up to you. Thank you very much for checking me out today, and I'll see you in the next one.